Greetings, everyone. Today I present to you one of the top 10 restricted films, The Last House on the Left, originally filmed in 1972. The retaliation depicted was so ruthless, nearly every country in the world banned it. In 2009, director Denis Iliad remade the movie. Today we discuss the 2009 version. As the film begins, two officers are escorting prisoner KRU. They reach a railroad crossing as a train passes, forced to halt. Suddenly, a car crashes into them sideways. Two masked figures emerge. The female assailant takes out the driver with a single shot. She then climbs into the back seat, eagerly embracing prisoner KRU. The other masked figure removes his disguise, revealing himself as Crew's brother, Francis. After exiting the vehicle, KRU cruelly snaps the neck of the remaining officer. The scene shifts. A blue pool glistens. Mary, the protagonist, practices swimming. Her mother, waiting by the poolside, praises her skills. She informs Mary their family of three will embark on a vacation. Mary's father, a surgeon, will join them after attending to his patient. The family promptly drives to their vacation destination, arriving at a secluded cabin in the woods, once settled. Mary suggests driving to a nearby town to visit her friend Peggy. Her mother is reluctant to let Mary go alone, indecisive. Her father, decisive, hands Mary the car keys. He gives her some money for enjoyment. Before leaving, her mother insists on a phone call upon arrival. Mary speeds down the road in her parents' car. Arriving at the small town quickly, her friend Peggy works at a local grocery store while Peggy works. Mary chats with her from the counter. Peggy asks if Mary still smokes marijuana. Mary says she quit. Swimmers can't indulge in such habits. A boy named Justin overhears their conversation while buying cigarettes. Peggy, following the law, checks his ID to confirm his age. Justin stammers. Clearly underage, Peggy refuses to sell him cigarettes. But Justin, having overheard their conversation, offers a deal. He will provide Peggy with high-quality product for free, saying it is at a nearby motel. Peggy can accompany him right away. Unable to resist the temptation, Peggy gladly agrees. Swiftly, Mary drives the two to the motel. Peggy follows Justin inside to retrieve the product. Mary waits in the car. She remembers her mother's request to call, yet her phone searches for a signal, forced to abandon the attempt. After a long wait, Peggy still hasn't returned. Mary decides to check on them. A scattered newspaper by the door displays a wanted poster featuring KRU and his gang from the film's beginning. Mary, oblivious, pushes the door open. Peggy and Justin sit on the bed. Indulging in their premium product, under Peggy's persuasion, Mary takes a hit. At that moment, her mother calls, warning of a storm approaching, urging Mary to return home quickly. Mary proposes staying with Peggy overnight. Her mother disapproves. Mary attempts to persuade her. Unfortunately, the call drops due to poor reception. Her mother worries. While her father reassures that their child is growing up, she should have her freedom. At the motel, the three enjoy themselves. Peggy asks where Justin is from. He replies he travels with his father and uncle. They often relocate. Peggy inquires about their occupation. Justin states they are involved in various activities, but he is not part of their circle. He sadly admits his mother passed away long ago. He had no choice but to follow his father and uncle. The atmosphere turns awkward as they discuss death. To lighten the mood, Peggy decides to give Justin a makeover. She finds a short-sleeved shirt for him and fixes his hair. As they enjoy themselves, three people burst in the trio from the beginning: KRU, his brother, and lover. Seeing his father and uncle return, Justin grows anxious. He explains he thought they wouldn't return tonight, so he invited friends over. Justin wears his father's shirt, which angers him deeply. Crew's menacing lover, Jennifer, swiftly removed Mary's coat. Claiming her fondness for the garment, frightened Mary dared not resist. KRU inquired about the car outside. Mary confessed it was hers. The three ruffians stated their need for a vehicle, claiming the car as their own. Justin stepped forward to dissuade his father, receiving a blow to the abdomen in return. Clutching his stomach, he collapsed onto the bed. KRU furiously threw a stack of newspapers at his face, exclaiming they were wanted. They needed a car to escape immediately. No one could know their whereabouts. Mary and Peggy quickly assured their innocence, promising to keep the matter secret. The vicious Francis tightly gripped the agitated Peggy's neck, produced a dagger to force her compliance, demanding she quiet down. The trembling Mary, frightened out of her wits, hurriedly handed over the car keys. Peggy tearfully begged for their release. KRU apologized to the ladies, but insisted they couldn't take the risk. Hearing this, Peggy became even more agitated, breaking free from Francis's grasp. Rushing to lock herself in the bathroom, the phone had no signal. Her cries for help went unheard outside the window. Soon, Frances broke down the door, dragging Peggy out forcefully, shattering her phone to pieces, then struck her head against the sink. Peggy lost consciousness at once. At that moment, Jennifer and KRU observed the scene outside. Realizing no one had noticed them, Frances found a phone on Mary and crushed it underfoot. Quickly, KRU drove Mary's car carrying their gang. As well as Mary and Peggy, they began to flee. During the ride, Frances relentlessly harassed Peggy Jennifer nearby, constantly touched Mary inappropriately. Justin, sitting in the passenger seat, was too scared to make a sound. Mary noticed the car's cigarette lighter. She discreetly pressed it to begin heating. The lighter soon popped out, fully heated. Seizing the moment when Jennifer was unaware, Mary pressed the hot lighter against her head. Jennifer let out a scream of pain. In the chaos, Mary opened the car door and sprinted away. KRU, driving, shouted angrily at Frances to handle Mary distracted. He drove the car into a deep ditch. After several collisions, the car crashed into a large tree. Frances's nose was broken. Jennifer, looking at her burn in the mirror, cried out, worried it would leave a permanent scar. An enraged Frances viciously attacked Mary and Peggy, who lay on the ground. Jennifer got out of the car to join in beating Mary. At that moment, Peggy scrambled up and ran. Frances and Jennifer chased after her. KRU restrained Mary. Justin hid behind a tree, watching everything in terror. Peggy hid in a small nook. Frances and Jennifer failed to find her. They ran in another direction. Seeing them leave, Peggy emerged and sprinted away. She spotted a factory not far away. Desperately, she cried for help, but she couldn't attract the factory workers. Instead, she drew the attention of Frances and Jennifer. Frances wanted to finish Peggy off with a single shot. Jennifer stopped him. She said KRU had ordered them to bring Peggy back. The two quickly recaptured Peggy. KRU stood up and asked Justin, "Man, are you ready?" Justin was confused, not understanding Crew's meaning. KRU wanted him to choose between Mary and Peggy. Justin refused. KRU forcefully pulled him over Frances and Jennifer. Each restrained Mary. As Justin struggled fiercely, KRU cursed, asking if Justin had lost his mind. He then released him. At that moment, Peggy insulted them, calling them pathetic and raged. KRU stabbed Peggy without hesitation. She was left barely alive. Ignoring Mary's desperate pleas, KRU violated her like a madman. Mary begged Justin to stop his father, KRU, but under his Uncle Francis's threats, Justin didn't dare to move. At that moment, KRU noticed Mary's necklace. He yanked it off and threw it behind him. Justin picked it up, nervously clutching it in his hand. As things came to an end, KRU adjusted his clothes and stood up. Jennifer, standing nearby, saw Mary's pain. Her eyes revealed a hint of pity. Struggling, Mary sat up. She tried to change the subject, saying, "I love swimming." KRU replied, "That's good to know." As Mary trembled and slowly stood up, she said she could go again. Confused, KRU just stared at her. Mary grabbed a stone from the ground and fiercely smashed it onto Crew's forehead. She then broke into a desperate sprint. Frances fired a few shots but missed her. Stumbling, Mary reached the lakeside. She jumped straight into the water. Swimming as far as she could, KRU and the others chased after her, firing multiple shots. Bullets grazed Mary's body, leaving trails in the water. After swimming underwater for a while, Mary had no choice but to surface. KRU fired more shots. Unfortunately, one struck Mary's back. She slowed down. Her blood stained the lake red. A storm approached KRU and Frances turned and left. Jennifer stood there for a long time. Her last shred of conscience made her struggle, but seeing Mary seemingly lifeless, she too turned and left. They abandoned Peggy, who had stopped breathing and walked away in the pouring rain. In the cabin, Mary's father, John, and mother, Emma, were unaware of the disaster that had already struck. The two were drinking red wine and chatting. Soon there was a frantic knocking at the door. Upon opening it, they found KRU and his gang standing outside. As a surgeon, John kindly reset Frances's broken nose. Seeing John and Emma's friendliness, KRU asked if they could borrow their car to go to town for medical help. Emma replied that their daughter had taken the car and hadn't returned yet. KRU and his gang had no choice but to give up on that idea. KRU then asked if they could use the landline phone to call for a taxi or tow truck to take them back to town. As they were about to make the call, a lightning strike caused a power outage and the phone line went dead. Emma lit some candles. KRU asked Emma if they lived here all the time. Emma said no, they were just on vacation here. Jennifer, with an envious look, said, "So you have many houses then?" Emma didn't respond, but asked how they ended up here, as it was a place where few people came. KRU explained that when he was young, his father often took them to this place. This time he brought his brother and son to revisit memories but they had an unfortunate car accident. Emma comforted them, saying that at least they were all safe and together. KRU even joked, "I wonder if I'll remember this day forever." John started the generator and the lights in the house came back on. Jennifer held a flashlight while John stitched up the wound on Francis's nose. Emma kindly handed Justin a cup of hot coffee. Meanwhile, amidst the storm with flashes of lightning and thunder on the lake, Mary, who was still alive, clung to a floating buoy. The cabin was not far from her. Emma tried to call a taxi for KRU and his gang, but still had no signal. John kindly invited them to stay the night. KRU seemed a bit embarrassed, but Emma said they had a separate guest house where they could stay. KRU and his gang agreed to stay the night. Justin got up to return his coffee cup to the kitchen. As he turned around, he was shocked to see Mary's photo on the refrigerator. He realized this was Mary's house and stood there, frightened. At that moment, Emma entered the room. She explained that the girl in the photo was their daughter, and she was the one who had taken the car. An overly nervous Justin apologized and then turned to leave, but his legs gave out and he fell to the ground. Emma rushed to help him up. Justin stumbled out and locked himself in the bathroom. KRU warned him from outside the door, "Don't you dare say a word. Don't mess this up any further." Justin didn't respond. Instead, he took out Mary's necklace that he had picked up in the woods and secretly returned to the kitchen, where he put Mary's necklace around the cup. As he turned around, he discovered that KRU was standing behind him. It turned out that KRU had only asked him to go to the guest room to sleep and hadn't seen the necklace on the cup. Simultaneously, at the pitch-black lakeside, Mary was frantically crawling ashore. On the cabin side, Emma tidied the guest room, arranged for KRU and his gang to stay, and left, returning to the main house. Unaware of Mary's difficult climb towards the cabin, back in the main house, John and Emma prepared to lock the door and sleep. At that moment, they heard a faint knocking sound. Upon investigation, they found a chair shaking. Looking closely, gasping Mary lay beside it. They hurriedly carried Mary inside. John performed CPR on her, followed by stopping the bleeding. Returning to the kitchen for a towel, Emma discovered Mary's necklace on a teacup. As John checked Mary for other injuries, he understood his daughter's ordeal. He closed his eyes in pain. After settling a bit, John asked Mary who did this, whether she saw their faces. Unfortunately, Mary was unconscious. Emma told John she found Mary's necklace in the kitchen, and Justin. His strange behavior upon seeing Mary's picture, John gritted his teeth and cursed. Emma cried in pain. After calming down, John suggested not to alert KRU and his gang. Taking their daughter to the hospital was crucial. 6 kilometers from the town, he would travel partway by boat, then carry Mary to the town. Emma tearfully agreed. John turned to launch the boat. In the guest room, KRU placed a gun on the bedside table, laid down on the bed. Next to him, Justin stared intently at the firearm. John, braving the storm, reached the boat on the lake only to find no key on board. He turned back to the tool room to search for the key. Justin, seizing Crew's bathroom break, surreptitiously took the gun. Sensing danger, Mary fetched a knife from her room. At that moment, Francis appeared. He vilely targeted Emma. Emma had to cautiously outwit Francis. She claimed her husband was drunk upstairs, asking Francis to join her for some wine, temporarily pacifying him. While fetching wine from the fridge, she stealthily removed Mary's photo. In the tool room, unable to find the key, John grabbed a wrench and a hammer. For self-defense, Francis, sipping red wine in the kitchen, made frivolous remarks towards Emma. He suggested taking a bath together. Emma pretended to agree, but said she needed to add firewood first, telling Francis to wait in the bathroom. As Francis turned towards the bathroom, passing the living room, he noticed Mary lying there. Awakened, Mary trembled in fear. Francis's eyes widened. About to approach, Emma smashed a wine bottle over his head from behind, then rushed back to the kitchen, grabbing a knife. Plunging it into Francis's chest, John arrived, and after a struggle with Francis, he and Emma pinned him down in the sink, pressing one of his hands into the drain. They activated the garbage disposal. Francis's hand was mangled, eliciting painful cries. John swung the hammer with all his strength, embedding it into Francis's skull. He collapsed, lifeless on the ground. At this point, John and Emma had to deal with the others. They each grabbed a weapon and stealthily approached the guest room. KRU was sound asleep. Embracing his lover, Jennifer, Justin sat on the floor with a gun in hand. He motioned John to take the gun. John crept over and took the firearm. The sound of the bullet being chambered woke Jennifer. John hastily fired a shot, striking Jennifer, but not fatally. KRU was awakened. After a scuffle, he fled from the bed. Jennifer locked herself in another room. John tried to break down the door from outside. KRU returned to the main house, finding Mary's blood-stained clothes. He entered the kitchen and saw the fallen Francis. In the guest room, John and Jennifer fought fiercely. Justin joined the battle. Emma seized the opportunity to finish off Jennifer with a shot, coming to their senses. John told Emma to guard their daughter with the gun. He rushed back to the main house to continue searching for KRU. By this time, Mary had been moved to the boat. Her mother encouraged her nonstop. KRU, unable to hide from John's search, asked in bewilderment, "How did you find out? Was it my damn son who told you?" John didn't answer. KRU continued to say, "You really did a good job taking care of my brother. He's really dead now." John followed the sound and found KRU. The two began to fight fiercely. Meanwhile, Justin ran to the boat. Asking Emma for the gun, John was clearly no match for KRU. He was quickly knocked down by KRU. KRU taunted him, saying, "Do you want to hear the details of what I did with your daughter? Do you want to know how I felt at the time?" John glanced at a stool nearby and said, "No, I want to hear you beg for mercy." Then he picked up the stool and smashed it toward KRU, but he was soon subdued by KRU again. As KRU was about to deal a heavy blow to John, Justin pointed a gun at his father's head from behind. Justin told KRU it's time to stop. KRU turned around and said, "All right, you indeed stood up at a crucial moment." But when Justin pulled the trigger, he found the gun was out of bullets. The ruthless KRU stabbed Justin with a steel bar. At this moment, Emma picked up a fire extinguisher and sprayed KRU fiercely. John, who had struggled up, knocked KRU down in a few blows. As dawn broke, John drove the boat, taking his daughter Mary and Justin to the hospital. Then he returned and began his revenge plan. First, he severed Cruz's central nerves, paralyzing him from the neck down. Then he put Cruz's head in a microwave to heat it up. Soon, the most horrifying scene occurred. Cruz's head exploded, just like a firecracker blasting a watermelon into pieces. The movie ends. That's it for this video. If you like the Top 10 Banned Film series, please give it a thumbs up. Your support is our motivation to continue. See you in the next video.